welcome to Planet Earth. We made it to Friday. If you're working this weekend, hey, don't worry, I'm there with you too. Together we'll get through this thing triumphantly, or at least get paid, right? That works pretty good too. So welcome to Planet Earth, man. We're going to talk about the K-T Extinction. Going to talk about the greatest football team in history. And we're going to start off with the biggest country on the planet, Russia. I was in the news this week, couldn't help but notice. Had a little problem with their private military group there, Wagner. Kind of turned on them and attempted to march on the capital. They made a deal. Now they're in Belarus. Not really sure how this is going to turn out. I see all these experts from Harvard with all their degrees and Oxford, and they always say the same thing. We don't know. So it looks like everyone's guess is pretty much good. Anyway, I was thinking about that, about Wagner and Russia and the whole war in Ukraine, and I realized that Russia isn't very good on offense. They have a good army, don't get me wrong, but like most armies, they're better defending their home than they are attacking somebody else. I mean, let's take a look at history right here, right? Poltava in 1709 when Sweden invaded Russia. Right, the Russians in green over there stopped the Swedes right in their tracks, and of course the French invasion, 1812, Napoleon. Everybody freezing to death. They talk about how the weather suddenly tends to rise up and attack people in Russia. So, you know, two big Russian victories, both wins, because they're on defense. Hey, who can forget the Second World War, right? The Great Patriotic War. Soviet Union holds off the Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS and everybody. Again, they're the ones that got attacked first, and they finished it storming into Berlin. I know it's going on offense, but, you know, they had a reason to do that one. So, yeah, they seem to be really, really good on defense, and not very good on offense. Take Afghanistan, for instance, right? They go storming in 1979, and, you know, 10 years later, staged withdrawal to make everything look good, but they did leave. Didn't lose, didn't exactly win. 10 years of chasing the Mujahideen all over the place. Could have done without doing that, you know. And of course, we got Ukraine last couple of years here. Been fighting there over a year, and they've only gained that much of the country. They actually used to have more up around Kiev, or Kyiv, they say these days. So, again, it's a little bit different. When somebody attacks you, then you going on the attack. That's just human nature. I once read about Persia and Greece, and how everyone was surprised that the Persians that lost at Marathon and ended up losing the second time around, Thermopylae and Salamis and everything. And it's like that old fable, Aesop's fable about the hound and the hare. You know, everyone laughed at the hound because it didn't capture the hare. He said he was running, I was running for dinner, he was running for his life. You know, same thing. When someone attacks your country, the military is there to defend it. And when people are protecting their country, they're going to fight much harder than going on the attack unprovoked somewhere else. And, you know, Russia's hardly unique in that regard. I mean, a lot of countries don't do very well on offense because that moral impetus isn't there. I mean, think about it. I mean, when someone attacks your people and your country, everyone grabs weapons and off they go. Pearl Harbor, you know, and Second World War is a good example. But if you're going someplace else and you don't really have a decent motive to do so, then the war drags on and on and on, and you end up not winning. You know, Vietnam comes to mind. In the case of Russia, yeah, they get invaded in the Second World War by a psychotic enemy that seeks to destroy the entire nation. So yeah, the Russians fight back with everything they have and win. They go to Afghanistan, a place that most of them probably couldn't find on a map, no real interest in it, and, you know, they run around in circles for 10 years. And here we are with Ukraine. I guess the impetus, Ukraine didn't really threaten Russia, but there's a lot of things the way this war could have been avoided. And, you know, said the Russians have grabbed that southeast quadrant over there and haven't really moved beyond there. And from what I've read, the Ukrainians seem to be having trouble moving forward, so it looks like we're just going to end up with a stalemate there, and it'd be nice if the whole thing just ended, you know. But the lesson here is Russia generally is not very good on offense. Doesn't make them weak, because as you learn from the other shows, invading Russia is a bad idea. Usually, like I said, when you go to the other side of the world and you're dealing with something that hasn't directly attacked you, it doesn't work out very well. The Russians found out the hard way a few times, so we can't seem to get the lesson through over here. Here's U.S. forces leaving Iraq. We didn't lose, but nobody really looks like they're very. I see no ticker tape parade in New York. It's more like everyone's leaving with a sense of relief. You know what I mean? And then there's Afghanistan. We talked about that before. That ended really badly. Again, other side of the world, someplace a lot of people can't even find on the map. Wondering what you're doing there. If you can't answer that question, probably not going to win. And I bring this up because we live in an era with nuclear armed superpowers: the United States, Russia, and China. And let's not forget France, Britain, there's a lot of other ones. North Korea, which tends to be somewhat unstable. And if you blunder into a war, all right, with some small place like Afghanistan or Iraq, that's bad enough. What if they blunder into a war against each other, not fully understanding what's going on, and the other guy has nukes? All right, so instead of a long, drawn-out, embarrassing war that gets a few thousand people killed, we end up with a nuclear holocaust that could end the planet. And when I mean end the planet, I mean completely. All right, nothing like the other mass extinctions that took out quite a few percentages of the species on this planet. We're talking end it completely. And when you think about a mass extinction, the last one we had 70 million years ago. That's right, the K-T event, Cretaceous area event. They just like to say K-T. The K looks really cool. 70 million years ago, an asteroid came out, smashed into the Earth, and, well, ended the reign of the dinosaurs. Yeah, it was a pretty traumatic event, obviously. Everything changed. The reptiles, eventually mammals, going away, though it wasn't easy for them. And most of the planet was affected. There might have been a couple pockets here and there, but sooner or later, the entire planet is going to get affected by this impact. How do we even know this happened? Well, look around. Here we are in Alberta. See the layers of the rock right there? Above it, somewhat colorful. Below, somewhat pale. Yeah, because there's nothing living there. Right after the impact. You see that black line? That's iridium. That came from the asteroid. Iridium, aside from being the material to make Captain America's shield with, is something very rare on this planet, but exists in asteroids and meteors, and you wouldn't find that much unless something very big smashed into the planet, vaporized, and drifted its way back down to the surface. So that's how we know that this actually happened. Where did this happen? Right there, right off the coast of Yucatan Peninsula, right there in the Gulf of Mexico. Chicxulub, I can never say that right. The crater, we know it's there. They found it. It exists, and it's a big one, man. We're talking about 100 miles across. So that means the asteroid that hit must have been calculating about 6 miles across. This is something like Mount Everest smashing into the planet, and something that big, that fast, is going to have an effect. And woo, did it ever have an effect? We're talking nuclear winter. That's Venus. However, that could have been Earth 70 million years ago. Look at that cloud cover. The asteroid hit, threw all the dust and dirt and everything up, tons of forest fires all over the place, kind of like, this summer, thanks Canada, with all the haze drifting all over the place. And it shut down the photosynthesis process for, I don't know, at least 2 years, maybe even 3. And that's devastating because the plants don't grow, the plants don't get the sunlight, they don't grow, the plants don't grow, the plant eaters are going to die out. The plant eaters die out, the meat eaters die out. See where this is going? And it wiped out about 70% of all the species on this planet. Anything bigger than a dog didn't survive because it needed a lot more food. The smaller animals actually didn't need as much food, so they made it through. But some fairly decent-sized animals like alligators and things, they actually survived. We'll talk about that in a later show. But what you need to know is this is a pretty big event. And we actually know this happened. Who do we have to thank for this? There you have Louis and Walter Alvarez, father and son paleontology team. They're the ones who came up with this theory, though there is some literature back in the 50s debating whether an asteroid has something to do with the extinction of the dinosaurs. But these guys went out into the field and went looking for it. And they found it, and there it is, the K-T boundary, they like to call it. So we have actual evidence that this event actually happened because, there's no dinosaur bones after 65 million years ago. So something happened to them. And that's what happened to them. Now, what did it actually look like? I saw this picture. It didn't look like this. Look at the size of that thing. Okay, that's half the moon. If that thing hit the planet, everything dies. there's no coming back from that, man. Kind of fanciful there. We see our future masters there scurrying into a hole. They're being pragmatic. We see some kind of theropod there in the distance. Unconcerned, master of the world. He don't have to worry about falling rocks. Boy, he's going to find out the hard way, isn't he? But, yeah, if that's Miss Holly Stockings here. She heard Furry Master and jumped up here to say hello to everybody. One of the three cats that got wandering around. We have Buddy, Miss Holly Stockings Blotnick's her full name, and Inky. Inky is a rambunctious little guy, and he is currently asleep. Isn't that something? Nonetheless, what did the asteroid coming down look like? This probably is about right. Probably something like that. And there's T-Rex screaming at it. I'm pretty sure I know exactly what he's screaming. It's not something I'm going to repeat here on the air. But as you could imagine, he seems to know that something very, very bad is coming down out of the sky. This is probably what the crater looked like a couple thousand years afterwards. Maybe even, I'm tempted to say 50,000 years after. Because I've been to Meteor Crater in Arizona, and that's a young crater of 50,000 years old. It's fairly intact. So after the dust had settled, literally, and the atmosphere cleared up, I'm very sure this asteroid was visible from space for easily 100,000 years, maybe even 200, before it finally eroded away. There's still traces of it, because that's how they know where it is. A lot of people wonder how long did it take the dinosaurs to become extinct? Because there's this belief that the asteroid hit on a Monday and it was over by Tuesday and everything was extinct. Now, it took a little bit longer than that, and there's been a debate over this. How long did it take for all the dinosaurs to die out? The current estimate is about 10,000 years. There are some people who speculate up to about 50, maybe even 100,000. You find no fossils below 65 million years old. As occasionally you find one that gets worked into a new position. They found a hadrosaur. There may have even been pockets of dinosaurs on the other side of the planet that may have even survived a million or 2 years beyond the event. Again, that's speculation. We don't have any evidence, but the other side of the planet is going to be affected least, so there might be something to it, but at the end of the day, they could just push off the inevitable because this is going to be the ruler of the planet afterwards. And the mammals will go into all sorts of forms as they fill in all the new niches. But it's not going to be easy for them. No, we've got still a lot of other large reptiles, and eventually killer birds are going to show up. But eventually, they are going to dominate the planet. Now, some people try to get a date on the impact. Yeah, people do this kind of thing. And I admit I am interested. Can you find an actual date? Well, they've a 2022 study on fish bones find a lot of iridium, and they speculate, again, I haven't read the whole thing because it's 47 pages long. The study speculates that the impact that ended the reign of the dinosaurs happened in the spring. So a nice spring day, 65 million years ago, asteroid came down and smashed into the planet and forever changed this planet's evolutionary course. Meaning what? Meaning that the dinosaurs no longer dominate it, and most dominant animals here have hair. There are other theories about the K-T extinction. Before the Alvarez hypothesis, they simply did not know what led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. Right now, it appears to be the asteroid. I don't see anything that can refute that. Other people think the Deccan traps in southern India, volcanism, may have created its own nuclear winter. Certainly possible. It happened at the end of the Permian. Did it happen again at the end of the Cretaceous? Other people maintain that maybe the asteroid and Deccan traps thing happened at the same time. Maybe the impact caused the Deccan traps. Interesting theory. Somehow, though, the asteroid impact is central to all of this. And the bottom one's my favorite one, too, because before the asteroid impact, everyone thought that maybe the small mammals ate too many dinosaur eggs. Yeah, I'm not buying that. Do you know the estimate there have been 2.5 billion T-Rexes living in the course of the Cretaceous period? Yeah, decided to ate too many dinosaur eggs there, you know. Plus, we also know dinosaurs tend to nest. Right? They're going to sit with the eggs. They might lose an egg here and there, but most of them are going to get through. So I'm not going there. So at the end of the day, the K-T extinction, maybe decking traps, maybe the dinosaur just ran their course and it was time to give up. I don't know. 140 million years. Some people also pointing a lack of diversity of dinosaur fossils at the end of the Cretaceous. All I know is it all ended up here. Right, for better or for worse, the mammals rule the world, and there are some terrifying mammals out there. And you can find one more terrifying from that. I really don't want to know about it. Now, the greatest football team in history. Last week we talked about the 60s and the Green Bay Packers. Hey, they were really good. Nobody doubts that. But here's the best one right here. The 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers. This team could fight anybody from any era and win. Anybody from the past, dominated their present. They could take on anybody in the near future. I don't know 100 years from now, but I'm pretty sure they could take on somebody in the 21st century and win. Now, why were they so good? Well, a lot of good things. Stronger players, good strategy. Sometimes luck comes in. And here's how it all started, right there in 1972 with the Immaculate Reception. On December 23, 1972, Terry Bradshaw, facing a 4th and 10 with 5 seconds left, actually 22 seconds left, drops back, throws the ball, and boom, Frenchie Fuqua with the Steelers collides with Jack Tatum with the Raiders. The ball bounces back towards the line of scrimmage, and somehow Franco Harris is sitting there, catches the ball, and runs with it for a touchdown. And the Steelers win. And that one play launches the greatest dynasty in the history of the NFL. Maybe any sport altogether. I could be biased. This tremendous event has been immortalized here in the airport in Pittsburgh. There we are. You can see that coming off the plane. Seen that thing 100 times. I kind of like this one better. They built this fairly recently. It's the actual site of the Immaculate Reception. The new stadium, newer stadium, built in 2001, is over there at Acrisure Stadium. The parking lot used to be Three Rivers Stadium, so they know the exact spot. They even have it marked off, got a memorial, sort of a site of pilgrimage for a lot of Steeler fans. So there it is, got his foot exactly where he planted it to catch it. Sometimes reading about an event is one thing, being where it happened, totally different experience. Now back to the Steelers. Why was this team so good? I already mentioned superior strategy, better athletes, a little bit of luck. I also think their competition helped them become a really good team. Back then in the 70s, everything I read, and the conference Steelers were in the AFC conference, the two dominant teams were Pittsburgh and Oakland, and these two teams fought each other left and right. I mean, they were always in the playoffs against each other. Conference championship 74 in Oakland, Pittsburgh won. 75 in Pittsburgh, Steelers won. 76 the Raiders won. Each time the team that won that game would win the Super Bowl. So sometimes the competition makes them stronger. You fight against a team that's really tough and you beat them, you become stronger, you learn a lot of things, and sometimes you're going to get hurt too. But hey, it makes you tougher too. And remember, this is the 1970s we're talking about too. Speaking of tough, look at, they used to put shots on each other. Not only are they illegal now, they're probably illegal then. But it's an era where clotheslining and horse collar tackles were completely legal. Look at these pictures. Like there's Super Bowl 10, there's L.C. Greenwood hitting Dallas Cowboy quarterback Roger Staubach. You can see him screaming in pain when he got hit. That's how bad they're hitting each other back then. And if you ever watch this game, thank goodness for YouTube, you can actually hear people scream in pain when they get hit. Yeah, it's true. Go ahead. Take a look when you have a chance. And this other picture over here on your right, there's Mean Joe Green carrying an unconscious. Yep, he's out of it. Lynn Swann off the field in the 75 conference championship. They're saying, oh, he cares for his teammates so much. They didn't get injury timeouts back then. Carry him off the field before you lose a timeout. Yeah, he took a shot to the back of the head, and he just wasn't the same after that. He had a great career, but you don't forget something like that. He says he doesn't remember half the game. So physically, very tough team playing other physically very tough teams, especially the Oakland Raiders back then, Vegas Raiders now. Steelers are going on to win some Super Bowls. Minnesota was another tough team in the other conference. They showed up in the Super Bowl a lot. Pittsburgh beats them. Dallas, with their insane claim of being the best team in the 70s until they ran into one particular team twice, the Steelers. Yeah, we beat them twice, 21-17, 35-31. So this team plays tough teams. They play other tough teams in the Super Bowl. And you notice there's a theme here. They just keep winning over and over because they're that good. After the Raiders faded away, the Steelers faced another challenger, the Houston Oilers, Tennessee Titans these days. And what made the Oilers tougher than even the Raiders was the fact that they were in the same division. So the Steelers played these guys twice a year in the regular season and then met in the playoffs. Both times in Pittsburgh. That helps, especially the weather against a dome team like Houston. But still, Houston's a tough team, and the Steelers played them 3 times a year, beat them, and went on to win 2 more Super Bowls. Not a knock against the Oilers. Very good team. You're just fighting against the greatest of all time. Steelers going to beat up on the Cowboys again? Yes, I will insult the Cowboys every chance I get. They played hard, but not enough. They beat them again. And then we have this iconic photograph in Super Bowl 14 where the Rams, another dominant team in that conference, fought like crazy to win, but didn't quite pull it out because the Steelers are the greatest of all time. But dynasties always have to come to an end at some time. Just like the dinosaurs, the Steelers would eventually fade away, their dynasty. But it was great while it lasted. Caught the very back end. Look at that. 6 Super Bowl trophies. 4 in that era. We've won a couple since 2005, 2008. So, no other team has 6. Excuse me, New England has 6. But I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. But still, look at that. 6 trophies, man. That's got to be impressive. 4 of them in that 7-year stretch. So, one of the greatest teams of all time, 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers. And is there a 7th trophy coming up? It might show up tomorrow. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the USFL Championship in Canton, Ohio, between the Birmingham Stallions, defending champions, against the Pittsburgh Maulers, who started off 2-6 and won 2 at the end and somehow fought their way into the championship. But hey, it's not how you start, it's how you end. And once you're in, you're in. So I'm screaming, go Maulers tomorrow. Maybe it works out for them. Maybe it doesn't. But hey, half the fun is getting there, right? Guys, have a great day. And when you get there, send me a postcard down there in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have yourself a great day. See you next time. Das vidanya.